On Life Changing Moments, we explore the moments, sometimes dramatic, sometimes subtle, when something shifts and a new direction begins to take shape. For physicians, residency may be one of the most profound life changing seasons of all. It's a time of rapid growth, deep uncertainty, expanding responsibility, and eventually one of the biggest decisions of all. What comes next? Today's episode lives right inside that dynamic space. I'm joined by Charlie Lowry, Director of Graduate Medical Education Relations at PracticeLink and host of the podcast Surviving and Thriving in Residency. There are times in our lives that change the way we see the world. Navigating these challenges can take insight, trusted confidants, or even a coach. Let's explore those moments. In this companion podcast to RX for Success, we will discover ways to learn and write our own success stories together. I'm Dr. Dael Waxman, a physician coach with MD Coaches, and this is Life Changing Moments. Since Charlie and I both spend much of our professional time walking alongside residents, we wanted to invite residents and the educators who support them into a conversation about what we've observed, what we've learned, and what seems to make the greatest difference during this intense season of change. Rather than a traditional interview, this is a shared conversation. We take turns being curious about each other's professional inflection points, but underneath that exchange is something deeper. Residents themselves are standing at powerful branch points, navigating identity, confidence, career uncertainty, leadership growth, and well-being in real time. If you care about the future of physicians, or you are one, this conversation offers insight into how clarity, connection, and intentional support can shape not just a first job, but a life in medicine. I'm glad you're here. So this is Dael Waxman. I'm the host of the Life Changing Moments podcast. And
this is Charlie Lowry, Director of GME Relations at PracticeLink and host of the podcast Surviving and Thriving in Residency.
Yeah. And Charlie, great to be with you in this conversation together around areas of mutual interest and mutual professional support and collaboration. So great to be with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I think it's a great idea.
In our introduction, what we said was that we're collaborating here and we're going to kind of, interview each other, but it's really more of a conversation with each other around areas of mutual interest, but just for us to kind of get to know each other and each other's professional offerings. So I'm going to start and I'll just kind of jump right in, Charlie, if that's okay with you.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go. Yeah.
So my podcast, Life Changing Moments, and actually in coaching, we're very interested in branch points or inflection points in people's lives. As you know, coaching is helping people go from point A to point B. Point A is the current state. Point B is an area that they're interested in. And so what we do in this podcast is kind of go backwards to some people's point A, that inflection point. And so my question for you is, what feels like a professional inflection point that led you to the work that you're now doing, especially with residents?
Sure. So a little bit about my background kind of sets the stage for this. I have been with PracticeLink 2 years now, getting the GME outreach off of the ground. Prior to that, I was working at medical school, an osteopathic medical school. And my role there was a statewide campus director. So I was stationed in hospitals throughout the state. And I worked mainly with third and fourth year medical students, but also with a lot of first year residents. But working with those third and fourth year residents during their clinical years, it was just an incredible experience. You really get to know them. You see their highs and their lows, and you watch their progression. And I always say, applying to medical school is the biggest step in somebody's life at that point. And then taking their first exam in first year is the next huge step. And it's all of these little steps. And so in third and fourth year, taking their first exam after a clinical rotation, the emotions that you feel because you're with those students so much, it really just made sense for me to progress to work with residents. PracticeLink was a perfect fit for that in getting a residency outreach program going. But I saw how intense medical school was. I saw the stress on the students. Again, all their highs and lows. I saw the tears. And then when I started with PracticeLink, we would hold events like maybe taking residents out to a baseball game, or we would have a roundtable discussion. And it was amazing, the information they would share with me. We would talk about things like what's missing in your educational system and what can I do to help you? I am here to help you and support you on your journey. And so a lot of things came up, first year, how stressful it was. They talked to me openly about CVs and student loans and contracts and what it's like to be an international medical graduate. And so that really just inspired my whole being. I thought there is a lot here that we can support. There's a lot that we can do to help them. Just take that tension away and that stress away. Any little piece of it that we can help along their journey, I feel like we can do. And so it took off. And I think that, probably that first roundtable discussion with those residents where they just opened up, I could tell they were very happy. Someone was interested to hear what are your struggles, and they were just very open and vulnerable and willing to share. And so I think that's a point, a huge point for me in my life.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds like the work with medical students and hearing about their triumphs and travails, and it because you also were exposed to kind of first year residents, but also just that the concept, the working with the third and fourth years and their advancement into residency. In some ways, you kind of advanced with them. The next phase is now you're specializing in supporting residents, and especially towards longer term goals, like for their career, right?
Yeah, it's true. When you go through that progression with them, you also build this relationship and this trust with them. And I think that's just a huge piece of the puzzle, knowing they have someone they can rely on, someone who I may not know the answer, but hopefully I can get it for you. Hopefully I have the connections to reach out and find out what it is that they need. And so, yeah, it means the world to me.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah.
You mentioned some of the things that came up as you were in roundtable discussions with residents, but I wonder if there were any surprises for you around what was on residents' minds early in your work with them around these roundtables and listening to some of their stories.
Yeah, I think, a big piece of it was that the conversation went well beyond just the day-to-day in the hospital and medicine. I always like to talk about well-being and mind, body, and spirit come up in my podcast almost every episode when I'm talking with residents and with leaders in the community. But I think the biggest thing with the roundtables that we discovered was on the outside, all of these residents go into the hospital every day and they have this confidence and they're so competent. But inside, they're very open to share their uncertainties. And I think that their big thing is just having someone to listen and someone to hear the struggles that they have daily. I think it's real easy for everyone to forget. When you go in the hospital, you see the residents there day after day. It's easy to forget that they have things going on outside of that hospital. They have some mental stress. They have some lack of family support. They're far away from family. Some of them are doing this alone. Some of them, it's the first time they've been in the country. So they're doing their first year residency coming in without knowing anyone or knowing the system. And so, those things really opened my eyes with the roundtable discussions. I was grateful to all of them. And again, that's a great way to develop a good relationship is just say, hey, what's going on with you? Tell me about your first year. Tell me, were you lonely? What would have helped you? What could I have done that could have helped you? What could PracticeLink do for you? So that was nice. It was kind of eye-opening to see, how much they needed validation and connection.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment, but first, I'd like to share a message from Navigate. After spending years in the financial sector, Navigate has met lots of clients with all kinds of student loan issues. They were confused, they were overwhelmed by the doublespeak and the overly complex forms, and especially the deliberately misleading statements from loan servicer representatives. Navigate recognized the chaos in the student loan industry and immediately brought clarity and real solutions. If you'd like to flip the script on student debt, visit www.flipthescript.loan/MD-coaches to schedule a call with Navigate. They'll tailor a plan specifically for your unique situation and work with you until the loan is paid off. What do you have to lose besides the stress of student loan debt?
Hi, I'm Rhonda Crow, founder and CEO for MD Coaches. Here on RX for Success, we interview a lot of great medical professionals on how they grew their careers, how they overcame challenges, and how they handle day-to-day work. I really hope you're getting a lot of great information. But if you're looking for an answer to a specific problem, management or administration challenge, or if you're feeling just a bit burnt out, like maybe you chose the wrong career, well, then there's a faster way to get the help you need. No, it's not counseling, it's coaching. RX for Success is produced by MD Coaches, a team of physicians who have been where you are. I know you're used to going it alone, but you don't have to. Get the support you need today. Visit us at mymdcoaches.com to schedule your complimentary consultation. Again, that's mymdcoaches.com, because you're not in this alone.
I'm just reflecting on what you're saying and having both been a resident as well as a faculty member, aware that there's some safety in you being the person that was asking these questions and listening to their answers. It wasn't a faculty member who they might feel is evaluative. So what a great service you're offering is this sort of outside, anonymous, confidential source for them to really share what's really going on with them.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. And, it's a win-win because any feedback I get that will help them on their journey, I can bring back to PracticeLink and hopefully create something on our side of the dashboard that will help all of the residents that are struggling with the same issue.
So, Charlie, I guess what I want to do is jump to a little bit more about PracticeLink because our listeners, either through the introduction or because they're familiar with PracticeLink anyway, mostly associated with assisting people with finding positions. And here we're talking about resident support. So, can you share some more about what's the intention in PracticeLink around supporting residents and getting you out there and listening to their stories and supporting them?
So our CEO is just very passionate about working with residents. So PracticeLink is a free platform for life. Residents can use things like our CV builder. We have free CV reviews. We have the podcast. We offer scholarships through the GME department. There's a world of things that are free. The job board itself, they can search for jobs throughout the country. They can filter those by immigration assistance or loan assistance. A lot of great free tools for them to use. As far as my role going out is really to help ease the burden and the stress. If we can get out there and talk to residents about what it is you're looking for in a career, taking out maybe the salary factor, and looking at a lot of other factors and trying to find a great match right off the bat for them, somewhere where they will thrive, somewhere where they will be happy, where their family will be happy. We really just want to educate them to it helps the whole healthcare system. If they stay long term, they find what they like, they enjoy it, and they thrive. It's a win for everyone.
Yeah, as you were talking there, in my mind, I was hearing you said we're helping them with matching their goals for their career rather than just going and getting a job.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that as I still work with some residents, and I hear that language is like, well, I'm getting a job here, but there isn't as much about what does this mean for me long term? What am I interested in long term? There's more of I got to get a job after residency, but not a deep amount of thinking about the rest of life and how that's going to impact my choice of career, which are some of my answers when you ask me some questions a little bit later on about coaching.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, I mean, that's great. You're in on, they're thinking about it when they're residents. So why not begin having that conversation with them?
That's exactly right. And the goal would be to really reach out more to medical students. I do a lot of work with medical students as well. It's a different world when I tell them, one day you're going to have to find a career path. And they say, well, I'm just a second year. I always say it's never too early to really start thinking about these things. But I think the other factor there too is, again, it's the support. It's saying, hi, I'm Charlie Lowry. I know you're a second year medical student, but let me help you through the process. When you get to residency, it will be easier. We know what we're doing. We've been around a long time and we love what we do. And we would love to help you through this whole process of going from medical student to resident to maybe fellowship to attending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You mentioned well-being, and that's a big piece of my podcast as well, an area of interest of mine. From where you sit and what you're observing with students and residents, how does career uncertainty show up as a well-being issue for those learners, for the residents and medical students?
Sure. Again, I hate to say this, but I think it's really the stress factor. If you have career uncertainty, you're going to have stress. You already have the stress of student loans, that maybe you're not looking at daily, but it's in your mind. All of these little stressors. So I think career uncertainty, it's somewhat easy for us to calm that ocean of waves with career uncertainty. I think if we can be there to help you with our free resources from the very beginning, from the very start, and again, supporting medical students in their journey so they know when they get to residency who to turn to, that makes a huge difference. And I think the earlier the education, the better. The earlier the education, definitely the less anxiety. We're not going to have all the answers. They're not going to have all the answers, but we can definitely help with that career uncertainty.
Yeah. From a coaching perspective, I'm over here thinking the better idea you have of where you're heading, as I said, in the kind of coaching model, the better idea you have of what point B is, in the future, even though you're not going to be certain about it, but the closer you are to here's where I'm heading, the less uncertainty there is and therefore less stress. And so I can see why your support services would be really helpful for them.
Yeah. I mean, and I always think, imagine yourself in today's world driving without a map or a GPS, it's going to be stressful. How am I going to get there? If you have that roadmap and, it's going to take a lot of that stress and anxiety away, and you're just going to feel more confident, and you're going to be able to function daily on a better basis. I think you're probably going to have more sleep. You're going to sleep better. You're going to have anything that can take any piece of anxiety away is most likely going to increase your well-being.
Yeah. Charlie, I just wonder, do you have a story of somebody that you've worked with that is kind of an example of how your support services have enabled them to really realize the career and the setting that they wish?
So we do. I mean, we have several. We actually record some of our folks who find their dream job. We do testimonials, and so there are several out there. One right now that I have been working with in St. Louis, who is an international medical graduate and came to PracticeLink really not knowing much about what we offer, but we just kind of guided along the process. We have this, and this, and let's start with looking at your CV and making it strong, and then we can look at what positions are open and what your criteria are. I always say it's like playing 20 questions. Where do you want to be? Do you want to work nights? Do you want to be 10 miles from Boston? What criteria are you looking for? So it worked out well, and they are thriving in their first role. I love it. I stay in touch with a lot of them.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's kind of your quality control is learning how they're landing in those places that you help them get to.
Yes. And they are very, very happy with PracticeLink and how well it works for them. And so I love to have testimonials from them, just because even in the video clips with the testimonials, you can see how happy they are and how truly grateful they are to have some of that stress taken off of them when it comes to finding that right fit for their first career.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, listen, before we shift roles, is there anything else that you would like listeners to know about your work with residents or PracticeLink or all the above that I haven't asked you about?
Sure. I mean, one thing that definitely to watch for are the scholarships. So we offered 6 scholarships for this past spring, to residents and medical students, and 1 to an APP. And then for the fall, it just closed. We did have a partner, Premier Health, actually came in and partnered and sponsored 6 of the scholarships. So we provided an additional 3 through PracticeLink for a total of 9 scholarships this fall that we'll give away here in a couple of weeks. That's a great thing. There's not a lot of free money out there for medical students and residents, fellows, people who are thinking about opening their first practice. Great opportunity. And typically you apply just by answering a few essay-style questions. We do a lot of webinars. So a lot of things like that. But if anyone has any questions or needs anything, they can reach out to me, and I will be glad to assist the best that I can.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment, but right now, I have a message for you from our friends at PracticeLink. If you're a physician considering your next career move, whether you're finishing training, relocating, or just ready for something new, make PracticeLink your first stop. PracticeLink is the leading physician job board with tens of thousands of opportunities across every specialty and in every corner of the country. You can search by specialty, location, employer type, and more, so finding the right fit is faster and easier. But PracticeLink offers more than just job listings. Our free resource center is designed specifically for physicians, and it includes expert tips on CV writing, contract negotiation, interview prep, and managing your job search with confidence. Best of all, everything is completely free for physicians. So visit PracticeLink.com today to explore jobs, connect with employers, and access career resources made just for you. I want to mention a sponsor who has been with us almost since our beginning. Physician Outlook is a splendid publication created for physicians by physicians. Originally a print and online magazine, it's now a dynamic digital-only platform using storytelling, humor, and community building to help physicians and surgeons reconnect with the art of medicine. Physician Outlook celebrates the entire healthcare team, including nurses, nurse practitioners, and PAs who value physician-led care. As artificial intelligence and corporate overreach threatens the human connection, Physician Outlook remains committed to the sacred physician-patient relationship. Beyond storytelling, Physician Outlook takes action on causes that matter. So join the movement, connect, laugh, be inspired. Visit physicianoutlook.com today. And now let's get back to our interview.
Let's switch the roles here. And what kind of questions do you have for me and MD
Sure.
coaches?
Yeah, I have lots of questions. So, what does coaching offer residents that other supports don't?
Yeah, great question. One of the things that's helpful is to delineate what coaching is and what it is not. And we've actually recently been in discussion with a medical school around the different support services for learners, and we're able to discern the difference between counseling, the academic support, and then also coaching support. And I think what coaching is, how it differentiates from those, is when somebody is challenged by they want to get to a certain place, but they feel challenged by getting there. They have some barriers in getting there. Coaching literally helps people go from their current state to the future state that they wish. And it's an exploration. It's a conversation about what's getting in the way of that happening. A lot of times it's fixed beliefs about what one can and can't do. And a lot of coaching is challenging those beliefs, assisting people with thinking outside the box and opening them up to what else is possible. So specifically when we're talking about residents, which I know is more your audience, the things that, we notice the same things that you're noticing. And we also offer confidential, anonymous support outside of an institution so that people feel more free to talk about the challenges that they're having. What we notice is, especially in first-year residents, a big obstacle is, you alluded to it, but didn't call it what it is, which is imposter syndrome. They are competent, they just don't feel competent. And working through that could be done with counseling, emotional support. We work with that a lot in coaching as well. In second and third year, before you get to kind of the final year, the things that we notice there are leadership challenges, because people now have to step into leadership positions and they're not really familiar with and know how to do some of the leadership pieces. But the other part that we see, getting back to the well-being part, national data shows that the most likely time for burnout and stress to occur is actually not the first burnout anyway, not in the first year. It's actually in the second year. And it's largely because they're fatigued, they're tired. It's been a year, but there's also another layer of responsibility. And that's where that leadership, so leadership and burnout. And then towards the end of residency, it's career coaching, just like what you're doing. I feel like we need to be more proactive around that, because programs tend not to do much with that, except to say, get out on the job market. So the coaching looks like similar to what you're talking about. What do you want out of life? Not just what do you want out of a job, but what do you want out of life? Where is that going to be? Some of the same questions that you're talking about. So coaching is not I'm depressed, anxious, and emotionally distraught. It's really, that's really counseling. We're not counselors, and we will send people to counselors if they need that. It's really people who want things to be different, and they're motivated to try some things out and look at some behavior changes and looking at their belief systems that may be getting in the way of their success.
Something we look at a lot too is the transition phases from medical student to first year resident, resident to fellow, or maybe resident to chief resident. We always look at those little transitions that where maybe they need a little extra push.
There's some reluctance to step into management, leadership, taking on more responsibility, and the coaching can be really very helpful in that situation as well.
Yeah, that's great. So which residents benefit most from coaching, do you think?
The characteristics of a resident who's going to do really well with coaching is somebody who's open to thinking outside the box for themselves, somebody who is has a growth mindset. So this is about learning. It's about trying some things on and seeing what feels right and what doesn't feel right, and realizing that we're learning with every step that we take. So somebody's willing to take a little bit of risk in that, and willing to grow and actually be exposed to some things from themselves that they hadn't even thought about before. So what I mean by that is, in coaching, we do not offer advice. We posit that the answers are within the client, so they were within the resident, but we ask probing questions that get people to start really thinking about themselves differently and thinking about what else is possible.
When I worked with medical students and they would apply for audition rotations, I would always tell them, have you really put much thought into where you want to land, or maybe where you want to do residency? Because so many of them would reply with, I'm just going to go home and do residency, or I'm going to go home and work, or, and sometimes I would say that to just the right student, and they would say, I've never thought about it. And I would say, well, where have you always wanted to live? Is there anywhere you've always, and they might say New York City or Florida or what have you. And sometimes they would apply for residency and end up there. And I wasn't trying to push them, but I was just trying to tell them, since you've started this whole journey pre-med, you've only thought, I'm just going to go home. And I'm like, it's 3-year residency. You can go anywhere.
I have a similar story. Somebody that I coached, he was finishing residency. He's a DO, an osteopath, and he actually really was pulled in by osteopathic manipulation, which we didn't do any teaching of in the residency, but he still maintained it, and he actually continued to maintain his interest in that. And of all the things he was exposed to, he said, what I really want to do is osteopathic manipulation. And I really want to do mostly that and some other things. But all the jobs out there don't really involve that. And so I said, well, what would it look like if you were to, why not make that happen if that's what you're interested in? And so he opened it up to sort of putting his intention out there about what he's interested in, and started exploring some different things instead of just primary care jobs in family medicine. And lo and behold, as he graduated, he found himself in an integrative medicine clinic that was looking for somebody who did osteopathic manipulation. Now, he didn't do it full time initially, so he did used his primary care stuff with urgent care, but that's what he's doing predominantly now.
Yeah, and if he is ever looking for, I do know a couple of places right now that are looking for academic, but they have a full-time OMT facility.
Mm-hmm.
And they stay booked all the time with patients, but great opportunity. If he's ever looking again, let me know.
I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
Yeah. So what themes are residents bringing most often to coaching?
I am overwhelmed. I don't feel like I know anything. I am stressed. I don't sleep when I can sleep because I'm worried that I don't know what I'm doing. I don't feel competent. That and every resident will be able to identify with that tension that has been there forever between service and education. Every resident will say, I feel like I'm just doing the work for the institution. I don't really feel like I'm getting much in the way of education. And that I remember complaining about that myself 45 years ago, when I was a resident. So those are the issues that are most common. We do hear some disillusionment and burnout. I come from a family medicine tradition, so I tend to coach more family medicine residents. And especially in the first year when they're off doing things that don't really even look or feel like what they're eventually going to be doing, even though they know that going in, they're like, what does this have to do with family medicine? Why am I doing intensive care unit stuff and, all that kind of stuff? So it's supporting them along the journey and hopefully having them know that this isn't your eventual reality, because it's stressful. Yeah. Residency is really, really stressful.
It is,
really stressful.
Yes. So one last question. How can we help residents move from survival mode to intentional choice?
Boy, what comes up for me as you ask that question is the word pause, which I borrow from mindfulness practice. And pausing, stopping, taking a breath, allowing oneself to just drop into what's happening right now, being able to name what's happening right now, and just sort of letting that be named, and then proceeding ahead. There's actually a mnemonic. It's the stop mnemonic, exactly that. Stop, take a breath, observe what's going on, and then proceed. So I feel like the pacing of medical education is so rapid, and there's so much going on that there's so little time to reflect and to pause. And a lot of what you and I are talking about, why people jump into jobs, because they haven't had time to pause and reflect. And so if at the very least you asking questions of residents and me asking questions of residents about what they want out of life gives them that time to pause and reflect on that, rather than just continuing to be on the treadmill. And so we're giving them that pause, which turns what's going on in their life into more intention.
Yeah. And I think when we listen, and we actively listen to them, that helps.
We have a few questions that you and I developed that we both think we want to answer. So, you're around a lot of medical students, more than I am, and a lot more different residents than I am. So what gives you hope about the next generation of physicians?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think that a lot of the residents I work with, they are asking life questions, not just job questions. I think that they are, they're more aware. We've talked about work-life balance forever and a day. That's been around as long as I can remember. But I think that the residents that I work with are taking it to heart. And I love seeing that. I think that's a great thing. I think that they are more self-aware, and they have everything they could want at their fingertips. And we'll see what happens with AI and things like that. But I do love seeing some of the social media influencers from the medical world. I think they are doing great things, some of them. And so I think that, I think there's hopefully some sustainability and some, folks out there that are deeply patient-centered. And I think the residents I work with daily, they have hearts of gold, and they're in it for the right reason. And that gives me hope.
I don't think I have a lot to add, but maybe echo a couple of things. The fact that this generation is more attentive to all of life, not just career, that, by the way, has created tension in, amongst the older generations, as you probably know. So even me, who's been a well-being advocate for a long time, I'm like, wow, I can't believe they're complaining about, whatever, because we just didn't even have the opportunity to complain about that stuff back in my day. So I really try to not to do the back in my day stories, because it's not helpful, number one. But my point of it is because we'll just use the word balanced, they're more balanced, they're way less likely to get burnt out and end their career early, because they already are restoring and rejuvenating, and they know how to do that, and they know how to fill their cup back up so that they really are more present for patients, way better than my generation did.
Yes. And again, I always ask that question, mind, body, spirit, how do you keep that in check? and their answers are usually spot on. They're very aware of that, and I love that.
Yeah.
Because it didn't used to be that way. It was I just survived from day to day. I'm eating to sustain life, not really paying attention to what I'm eating. But the residents today, they're very aware of taking care of themselves physically, mentally.
The other thing that you mentioned was patient-centered care. I actually did a whole fellowship on psychosocial medicine, and we were learning. The first thing we did was person-centered interviewing. It didn't even have a name back then. It was just more focused on what was the patient's experience, which was kind of radical from the training that I got. And the training that I got was very much a biomedical model, which was go grab medical information, make a diagnosis, and then say, here's the treatment plan. And we kind of forgot that there's a patient attached to that. And so my fellowship is all about really basically bringing humanism and person-centeredness. And that's what I did in my career, was teaching that. I've been retired from full-time teaching for 4 years, and I still do some observing of the residents I just did it yesterday, when they're interacting with patients. And my goodness, they are getting in medical school now what I've been teaching in residency. So we don't even have to teach in a residency anymore, about person-centeredness and high-quality interviewing, getting the patient's perspective, shared decision-making, all the stuff that didn't even exist back when I was in training. So that gives me a lot of hope also that we're going to be much more person-centered. We have one last question here that we can both kind of take a stab at. Charlie, what do you most want residents listening to know right now? Something that, either a summary of what we've already said or something else that you want to add to what's already been said?
Well, I think there's a few things. Take advantage of any free resource you have. There are a lot of free resources out there. Take advantage of those. Use those to make your life easier if you can. Residency is not forever. It will end, and you'll find your purpose, and you'll thrive. So keep that in mind. I think words of wisdom for me would be: find your community, find your people. You're not alone. There are a lot of people who may be going through the exact same thing, and none of you are talking about it to each other, but know that you're not alone. And just keep in mind, again, residency is just a chapter in the book, and down the road, you'll look back, and all of this will be behind you, but it will all make you a better person at the end of the day. So reach out for help if you need help. And if you don't know where to find that, call us. I mean, we can hopefully connect you with the right people.
Yeah. And that's a great segue to how I would answer that question, which is that in addition to all the things that you mentioned, Charlie, is find people who feel safe to you, mentors, advisors, coaches, that when I say feel safe, often that doesn't feel like somebody who's in the same institution that you're in. It could be, but somebody that you feel very safe and that will hold whatever you're going through with confidentiality and doesn't have any kind of a conflict of interest, and lean on them. And I believe mentorship is a very wonderful thing to have throughout your career. And I've had several mentors. I still have mentors, and I'm in semi-retirement now. And to find those people early on, and these are people that have walked the path that you're now walking and can be really helpful in helping you move through that.
So that's true. And I think as you progress through your journey, don't forget those preceptors who were phenomenal, and don't forget those mentors, and don't forget to be maybe a preceptor or a mentor yourself if you can.
Well, Charlie, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate having the opportunity to co-interview each other and learn what each of us are focused on, but also the very large area of overlap between our professional lives. And so I'm looking forward to future conversations and future collaboration.
Absolutely. Anytime, just let me know and I'll be glad to jump on, and I can talk forever. So there's a lot to talk about. We barely skimmed the surface.
I can too. And so we'll also have to take this offline sometime, just have coffee together and we can talk all afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to Life Changing Moments. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to rate us 5 stars and leave a review. Doing so helps our podcast reach more listeners. Have something to share? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Visit the MD Coaches community on Facebook groups. This dynamic virtual space is a place to continue discussion about life-changing moments and perhaps share some life-changing moments of your own. Join the conversation today.